Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, in which we look back through the annals of true crime to discuss events that took place on this week in history. I'm your host Mark Decano, and with me as always are my friends Jed Lester.
Hello.
And Rue Turner.
Hello.
We want your reviews. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review and preferably 5 stars. And if not, you can always email your review to us at stuff@truecrimediary.co.uk or through our Facebook page or Instagram account, and links to all of those are available on our website www.truecrimediary.co.uk. And in appreciation of every 5-star review, we'll give you a shout out in a future episode. The date we're looking at this week is the 24th of December, and at 10 a.m. on this day in 1828, the trial of William Burke opened. The crimes of William Burke and William Hare were already notorious by the time the trial began, and with Hare turning King's evidence in exchange for immunity, the trial went on uninterrupted through the night and into the morning of Christmas Day, when Burke was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death.
It's a bit inconvenient, isn't it?
You always think of them as a fairly strong couplet. You don't think of one going, oh yeah, tell you what, I'll tell you he done it and you let me off.
Yeah, I mean, that's really surprising actually, because obviously they both did everything together.
Mm.
But the thing is, they had no evidence at all. They had literally nothing. I mean, I don't know what. There was no forensics in 1828. There was barely.
Apart from all them bodies.
Apart from all them bodies. Well, all the bodies had been conveniently used up.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's a brilliant plan, isn't it?
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's weird that. Basically, because they, apart from obviously hardly any evidence, they barely got a police force. I mean, Edinburgh was one of the first cities to get a police force, but even they just got like the peelers.
Not in
1828.
28.
I mean, the police job in those days was more about keeping the streets clean than investigating crime. They didn't really investigate things. They would react when people would report a crime, but mostly they were there to move vagrants along and literally keep the streets clean. So they were street sweepers as much as anything.
Blimey.
It's incredible, isn't it? All this time of life, we've had law and order for about 150 years, and that's it. Imagine the carnage would have been. You can do anything, literally, 200 years ago.
Yeah, well, before that it was the army, basically.
The church at all? I suppose church would have guided moralness a bit.
Coached lost souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently told you, kind of right from wrong, but you could literally do what you want.
Well, that's the great thing about Christianity is you can do whatever you like and then just repent at the end and you'll be fine. That's the rules as I understand it. So I'm sorry. Forgive me.
That's the basis that you live your life.
Yeah.
Go on then. Tell us about Bill and Bill.
The Billy Boys.
Yeah. I'm surprised that wasn't a more of a name. Burke and Hare's quite good. It kind of rolls off the tongue. It's better than Hare and Burke. Hare and Burke, Burke and Hare. But the Billy Boys is such an obvious nickname, isn't it? Especially Scottish.
Yeah. Well, maybe there were too many.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Too common an epithet.
Anyway, go on then. Tell us, who are they?
Who are they? Well, the
Bills.
They were Irish immigrants. They were both poor labourers. They both moved to Scotland and they worked on the Union Canal. So they were navvies, navigational engineers. So they dug, basically. They were diggers and general labourers. They met each other working on bringing in a harvest in Lothian, which is just outside Edinburgh, in 1827. And they became friends. When they moved to Edinburgh, Burke and his wife, Helen MacDougall, moved into the same lodging house where Mr. and Mrs. Hare were living. Which is interesting because they met, harvest is going to be late autumn? So they met in late autumn of 1827, and in November, they started killing people.
Wow.
And the span of their crimes was 1 year, during which time they killed 16 people.
God, I didn't realise it was over such...
They hit it off.
That's almost a spree.
Arguably, yeah.
I'd say that was a spree.
It's hardly a career.
Classes as career, criminal?
Yeah. It's hardly a career of murder and mayhem. It's just a season.
They were waiting for the... Well, no, they were just ticking them off and earning...
Just cashing them
out
in.
of it, weren't they? Yeah.
So, at the time, I think Hare would have been earning about £1 a week. That would have been the wage.
Sounds quite a lot.
Now, the sale of a body for dissection would have got them about £8 to £10.
Okay. 2 months' salary.
The only piece of research I did for this, apart from watching a film, was to find out how much a pound was worth in today's money. But I did it from 1800, and it's about £850 is in today's money.
Yeah, it would have been about £1,000 because between £8 and £10. So call it £9. That's about £1,000 in current parlance.
Which is, I suppose, that's about right for a body. I mean, it's pretty specific, isn't it?
Well, they would have got 8 in the summer and 10 in the winter.
Really? It went
Stay
up
fresh.
Because of freshness. It would go off.
In the summer. Well, even in Scotland.
Yeah, even in Scotland. Yeah, so they'd had to work quickly, so they didn't get as much money in the summertime.
Wow, I didn't know there was a peak time.
No refrigeration.
It's not as if, though, if you're knocking them off, it's not as if you kill someone just after breakfast and then bring them home, sit them on the sofa, and go, we've got to flog this by the end of the week.
Yeah. No, you take them still warm.
You've either got your buyer ready,
yeah,
or or you just drop it round while it's still tepid.
Well, once they got going, they knew there was a buyer always, presumably. Wasn't
yeah. So when it started in November 1827, they had a lodger named Donald. I don't know if that's his first name or last name. Now he died. He was staying at the lodging house with the Hares. He was staying there, and he died. He died of dropsy.
Dropsy.
The arms and legs sort of swell up from liquid on. So he died. He died. Natural causes.
So what you saying? Me and you go over there, cut him up, and flush him down the loo?
Burke and Hare. They took the body and went looking for a buyer. They just went to the college, and so there was a number of people performing anatomy at the time.
So it was clearly a thing.
Definitely. Edinburgh was one of the foremost places in Europe to teach anatomy. You've got all the Surgeons Square and everything all there. It's all the colleges. And it's still got a reputation. But at the time, it was like one of the big places in Europe. And there's a number of people doing it. And there was a Professor Monroe. He was quite well known. And then there was Dr. Knox.
Yes.
They took this body, went to the College of Surgeons looking for Monroe. But a student there guided them to Knox. So they went to Knox's surgery, and one of Knox's assistants bought Donald for £7 10 shillings. That was their first cadaver. And they thought, well, this is easy.
What a wheeze.
What a wheeze, yeah, exactly.
Burke and Hare, members of the great medical profession.
So they basically found their new source of income.
Instead of both of them going, oh dear, this is terrible, let's, I don't know, take it to the morgue or something. Or one of them going, I'll tell you what we should do with this. A light bulb that... Had light bulbs been invented? Went off, and both of their heads, both of them going, I'll tell you what we should do with this.
The thing I find tricky about this kind of, sudden block of kills is I don't believe that at least one of them wasn't doing this before. Do you know what I mean? I can't imagine you just suddenly get the idea after meeting a mate, knowing him for a couple of weeks of, let's start knocking people off and flogging them. It's not, it's not an easy step to make to start killing people.
It was, a month or something from the first time meeting. I mean, I suppose the first body was, well, what should we do? We could, I tell you what, we could make some money out of this, but. So it wasn't necessarily
maybe the first one was a real incident,
and then it continuing to actual, several murders.
Technically, when Donald died, when they took him to the surgeons, they weren't committing a crime.
They were just disposing.
Well, it wasn't illegal to take a body. Removing or moving a body wasn't a crime. Grave robbing was basically about disturbing a grave. Disturbing a grave was illegal. So digging up a grave was illegal. Taking the body wasn't the illegal part.
Right, okay, yeah.
So at the time you had grave robbing, you had the body snatchers, or as they called themselves, the resurrection men. Because of this demand for anatomical subjects, people would go in, dig up bodies and take them. It's a thing that happened. It happened to such an extent, in fact, that because the demand was ever increasing, more bodies, more study, there was loads of these people digging up bodies and taking them. So much so that they actually would hire people to basically be in the graveyard at night to protect the grave.
Security for the corpses.
Yeah, I mean, families would go to the cemetery, have the burial, and then stay there until the body wasn't worth digging up again.
Wow.
Actually wait at the graveside, you know.
God, what an existence, blimey.
And of course, there's that whole fashion of armouring your coffins so that the bodies couldn't be taken out.
Yeah. They have sometimes they put a great big slab of stone or I suppose concrete or something across the top over the grave so you couldn't get to it.
Meaning it's too heavy.
Yeah.
It was too heavy, yeah. Or it would be an effort to break it up. They had mort safes as well.
Yeah, and there'd be iron bars across the body holding it into the thing, so you'd have to dismember the body to take it out.
Yeah. So that was a mort safe, the big iron cage over the grave. They built watchtowers so you could in the cemetery, so people could man the towers and watch over the cemetery. You know, I mean, it was a big deal.
Clearly,
it wasn't like uncommon. So basically, body snatching became too difficult. So murder was a lot easier. A much easier way to get hold of a body.
Yes, of course, yes. And with the rubbish policeman.
With the rubbish policeman, yeah.
There you go.
And also, because the fact of the matter is that there were bodies allowed to be used for anatomical study, but they had to be suicides. They had to be people who died in prison, or like orphans and what have you. Basically, unclaimable people. Yeah. So 16 people they confessed to having killed, but we don't know who most of them were because we're talking about waifs and strays. We know who some of them were, but they're described as a visiting man, or there's a woman who sold salt was one of them. That's what we don't know a lot about them. But what we do know is we know a little bit about the three that they were charged with.
Okay.
Dennis Nielsen had the same plan.
Well, I was thinking that.
The same kind of when you said waifs and strays.
Also, if you're going to get killed, if you're going to be executed for just a couple, I wonder why you bother mentioning any of the others.
I mean, why would you admit to any? But hang on, it's bizarrely like didn't Dennis Nielsen admit to about
16?
That amount of...
Yeah, I think it was.
Hang on, it's all coming together. We now know where he got his ideas.
Next to that packet of Ready Brek on his shelf was a Burke Hare book.
He just didn't sell them on. He had them for breakfast or whatever.
He dissected them himself and put them in bags.
So do you think there were like hundreds of people doing this? And these two were the most successful? Hence why we've
Or
heard
perhaps
of them.
just the least successful.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
Maybe
that's
everybody
true.
else got away with it.
I always thought why we don't know why Robert Knox's name isn't more prominent in history. I mean, I know it is prominent in history, but why isn't more prominent in history as to being synonymous with a very, very famous trial? I'm aware he didn't do the murders, but he clearly knew what was going on every other night. Perhaps it wasn't every other week. They're going, yeah, here's another one.
This one's as fresh as a new cut cabbage.
The first question surely was, so where did you get that? Just out of interest. But he doesn't care about that. He just wants something to study and dissect and learn from, I suppose. To him, it's meat.
Yeah, it's easily argued, I think, that either A, he knew all about it,
Yes.
but didn't tell anybody, or he didn't know anything about it. But I think there's every reason to believe that he got the idea. He might have not known for certain, but he'd have to be pretty suspicious because they're bringing regular bodies pretty regular.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean,
Although, I mean, not understanding how the medical cadaver industry worked at that time, it's quite possible that Burke and Hare may have just been seen as like representing as an agent. So they were perhaps buying them from other families who were having losses in their family and then selling them at a higher price for educational purposes to the universities. You know,
like
they've got the contacts and people go to them when they've lost someone. You know.
Yeah. I think it's just the safest thing to say is probably they wanted the cadavers enough that they just didn't want to ask any questions. Best not to know, you know.
Yeah, he really wanted them, didn't he, old Dr. Knox?
Yeah, good quality ones, not so easy to come by.
And I think while you were saying that Knox isn't really as famous, Burke and Hare are famous, and Knox really isn't.
Yes.
Is that firstly because he was exonerated, he wasn't charged with anything.
Sure.
He's not part of the criminal story, if you like.
Right. Okay.
But also, he was then slowly kind of sidelined out of the story.
Yeah, he was blackballed, basically, wasn't he? I mean, understandably, because everyone knew what was, everyone was like, really?
Yeah. There was a rhyme, as often happened at this time, because people had no TV.
Yes. Go on then.
Up the close and down the stair, Butt and Ben with Burke and Hare. Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, Knox the boy that buys the beef.
Yeah, that's good, that.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
Say it again.
Through the close and up the stair. So that's down the road and up the stairs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Butt and Ben with Burke and Hare.
Butt and Ben, yeah.
Yeah.
Butt and Ben.
Does that mean something to you?
Butt and Ben is like a small stone farmstead. It's a very small building.
Oh, so that's up the stairs of the lodging house, basically.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, Butt and Ben.
All right, so there you go. So it's through the close, up the road, up the stairs to the lodging house with Burke and Hare, and then it's Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, and Knox the boy who buys the beef.
It's all right, that.
So yeah, it's a good one. Right, so the three people that we know of who fell to their foul deeds.
Yep.
There's one woman named Mary Patterson, sometimes Mary Mitchell. They weren't too worried about names at the time. Now, she was allegedly quite the beauty. She may have been a prostitute, but she may simply have been like a resident of the Magdalen Asylum, which is a sort of reform school. Now, she had a friend named Janet Brown, who was a staunch defender of her reputation, so everyone said she was a prostitute. She said no, she wasn't. Now, Brown was one of the last people to see Patterson alive because they met up with Burke and they all went for some drinks and they had like breakfast and that's part of their formula was they would get people drunk.
Uh-huh.
So they went for breakfast and basically knocked back a couple of bottles of whiskey.
Come on, you tiny little wreck, have a drink.
Oh, right. Really
a proper
drunk,
Scottish
basically.
breakfast, yeah.
Right, okay. I was thinking just like, hey, kind of merry. But
No,
you mean
I mean
absolutely
passed out
cold.
drunk, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
fine. And that's the better option if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
Hey, you're my best mate, you are.
You're my best mate.
Why are you murdering me?
This is another similarity with Nilsson, isn't it?
Yeah. Get them liquored up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, if it ain't broke.
Yeah. Well, it's a coward's murder, isn't it? Get them drunk first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Patterson passed out drunk, and Brown, her friend, left her with Burke.
Fatal mistake.
Burke was there with McDougal, his wife. They started having an argument. So Brown left her. Patterson passed out on the table. Them two fighting. Brown left. When she came back, they were gone, and she never saw them again. Her friend again.
Okay. Who was the? Sorry, I've lost track. Who was the kind of baddie out of the badder?
The badder
out of the two.
Oh, Hare, definitely.
Was he the one who?
He turned the evidence. He turned King's evidence.
Hanged.
No, Burke hanged. Burke is kind of the thug, and Hare
Burke is the thug. Yep.
Was still an unsavoury character, but he was the one who ran the lodging house
and plotted and
he's the one who turned
murdered
King's evidence against Burke to save himself.
And it gives a man pride, respect of himself to be doing a good job.
Wow.
So Burke hanged and Hare walked.
Right. So he just had one more killing in him.
Spoiler alert.
That's one. So the second person that we know about was
15 to go.
the second person that they were indicted for, they were charged with the murder of, was young James Wilson. He was commonly known around the town as Daft Jamie, because he were a bit daft.
Oh, yes. Okay, fine.
He was mentally and physically disabled, basically. So he
Okay. Gosh.
had like a club foot or something like that. He walked with difficulty. But he was he was a street beggar. He lived on the street and he just begged money for a living, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is, he was quite well known around the town because Edinburgh wasn't a huge city. It still isn't now. And that's because even with all the new town added.
Sure, yeah.
But it wasn't a big city. And and Jamie, because of his amiable demeanour and, of course, his awkward walk and his,
noticeable.
Yeah, he was a noticeable character around town. So when he suddenly disappeared, people sort of go, "Oh, hello, where's Jamie gone?"
Hello.
Now he turned up in Knox's surgical theatre.
Oh right, okay, that was quick.
And so one of his Knox's assistants said that he looked familiar.
Right, yeah.
So when he actually went into the theatre for dissection, his head and feet had been removed prior to being wheeled out.
So because people may have gone, hang on.
Yeah, so all the assembled students would have gone, "That's Jamie."
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So
because he was clearly that well known.
He was well known. Yeah. So if you're thinking about how much Knox knew or didn't know,
yes, that's what I'm talking about. He's like key
a little bit
piece of I'll just decapitate him.
And then the final one was a Margaret Doherty, also called Margaret Campbell. Now she was invited round to Burke's place for drinks, as is the fashion. And he had a couple of people staying there called Anne and James Gray. They were staying and they were asked to move out and go and stay at Hare's lodging house for the night because this Margaret they'd invited around. They said, she's a relative from Ireland, which is nonsense. So we're going to have a family night drinking and you two need to
So what did they say
away.
to Doherty to entice her in?
Let's come round and let's get lagged.
But actually,
That'll do for most folk.
Yeah.
Really? All right, love. Do you want to
come back to ours? We'll keep drinking.
Yeah, but
which is what they had to do in Edinburgh in 1828.
But that was it. There was no
Well, I wasn't there. I don't know the details of the conversation.
But they were like, "Hello, how are you in the street? Would you like a drink?"
Yeah, basically.
Right.
They just friendly.
Couple of
right, okay.
We've got Irish likely lads who've got plenty of booze.
Yeah, we got a room. You can come round. We'll chat. We'll drink. It'll be great. So she did. She went round, and then they killed her. Now, the thing about that is, the next day, Anne and James Gray returned to the house, and there was a little bit of back and forth about, you can't go in here, and you can't go in there, you can't do that. Anyway, basically, it came to the fact that they got into the room where Doherty. Her body was under the bed. They hadn't had time to move it yet.
Right.
So they called the police. So this is the thing about where the police only react to people reporting crime. They said, dead body. So the police went round. They found the remains.
Well, what do we have here?
So they arrested Burke and his wife MacDougall, and then later on they caught up with Hare and Mrs. Hare, and they arrested them as well. They realised they didn't actually have a lot of evidence about who'd actually done the killing. So they offered William Hare the opportunity to turn King's evidence against Burke. So basically, you tell us everything that happened, testify against Burke, and we'll give you immunity. So he got immunity for himself and his wife in order to testify against Burke and MacDougall.
They probably would have asked the same question to which one?
Burke.
The other one.
The other one.
They probably would have asked the same question, but he may have said, I don't know, just kept quiet or something. But the other one,
maybe, yeah,
was like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because they wouldn't just go, I'll tell you what, let's offer immunity to one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you see it on like the cop shows, You've got them in opposite interrogation rooms. And
just turn them against each other.
He's offering the same deal to your mate right now. Which one of you breaks first?
exactly. Yeah. But anyway, he spilt whatever information he spilt.
Yeah. So basically,
and the police were like, "Okay, then." They weren't like interested in getting them both. They just
they knew they couldn't really prove anything. They needed someone to say, "This is what happened, and I know I was there," and he did it.
Yeah.
That's what they had. They didn't have. This is 1828. They didn't have anything realistically other than witness testimony. Yeah.
No evidence. No.
You can't say, "Oh, yeah, his DNA was on the body." If they don't even know what that is at the time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It was all down to witness statements, and they had one witness realistically, which was him, and against the other two.
Yes.
And even after Hare confessed everything and said, "Oh, we killed 16 people. This is who they were. This is what happened." They got the confession from Burke on that basis. He confessed, although his version didn't match Hare's version, and he gave a second interview which also didn't match the other two versions. So it's not very clear exactly what happened, but it is known that the two of them definitely killed those 16 people. But even that, they still didn't have enough evidence against McDougall, and she was released, even though she went to trial.
Wow.
Now, she wasn't off scot-free. Verdict was not proven, which basically means you're not acquitted, you're not being found not guilty, we just can't prove it. So we're releasing you because we can't prove you did it. Which is basically saying we really think you did it.
Which also turns the idea of innocent until proven guilty on its head.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? She didn't walk in there innocent, she walked in there not yet proven guilty.
Not guilty yet, yeah.
Yeah.
So McDougall was found not proven, and she was released at the end of the trial, so Christmas morning.
Is she nothing more than an accomplice? Or complicit?
She was an accomplice. She would have helped them with moving, but she didn't commit murder, but she would help with moving the bodies.
Okay. An accessory.
She was attacked by a mob. And when on release from the court, and she had to flee into the protection of the police. Your favourite?
She fled.
She fled.
Were the mob? Can I just check if the mob were baying?
A baying mob? Definitely a baying mob. Yeah.
Okay, it's not a normal mob.
No, all mobs bay, don't they?
Baying's default status, isn't it?
Cattle are the only things that low, and mobs are the only things that bay.
Bay.
Is that right?
Yeah. No, some are angry.
An angry mob.
Yep.
Yeah.
Baying.
No, I think
What's the difference between baying and angry?
Well, you could be angry but quiet. Quietly angry.
Baying.
But if you're baying, you're shouting, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so.
Oh, they bay for
blood. Yeah.
That's a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I personally have never bayed for blood.
I've never bayed for anything, as far as I'm aware. Not to my knowledge, at least.
All right. Well, let's agree that they were a baying mob.
Okay. Duly noted.
So I'm just checking a definition.
Of baying.
And it is typically of dogs and wolves to make a long, deep cry repeatedly.
Right. Okay. There you go. Okay, so a baying mob attacked her, and she fled into the protection of the police. Now, the mob laid the police station under siege. She had to escape out of a window to get away.
Yeah. Hang on. Was it a bay window?
Well, once she was out the window, I'm assuming it's a little tiny window in a bathroom or something like that.
Yeah, it's annoying.
She
like
left. She basically out the window. She left the city, and no one knows what happened to her after that. She went in. Disappeared into hiding.
Was that it?
Yep. She gone.
Out the window. She left the city. No one knows what happened to her.
That's it. Right. Out of the window and out of the story.
Successful fleeing.
Fine. That was
They didn't really surround the building, did they?
No.
Out the window.
Out the window.
Straight. There's a sign saying to countryside.
To freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fine. So we never heard from her ever again.
Never heard from her again. Now, Margaret Hare was not a dissimilar story. She was released in January. Now, obviously, she'd been kept in custody for her own protection. So she's released a couple of weeks after the trial. She was also recognised and attacked by presumably a baying mob.
Yeah, I'd imagine it was the same baying mob.
Yeah. She also had to flee to the protection of the police.
Oh, yeah.
Now, she didn't have to escape through
the same window.
No, she was escorted under the police guard to the port, and they put her on a ferry back to Ireland. And
okay.
Never heard from her again.
So that would have left from a port, which would be near the bay.
That's true. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
This was clearly by the fact a mob was present in both of those wives' departures would suggest that it was a very, very well-known and topical court case.
Oh yeah, everyone knew about this.
Right.
It was big. In fact, the trial, the execution, and everything that came after, there were thousands of people attending or attempting to attend. It nearly broke into a riot in some places because people couldn't get in.
Wow.
Into the court case?
Yeah. William Hare, then, he was released in February of 1829, so he was kept behind a couple more weeks than Margaret was. Now, when he was released, he was set out on a coach out of the city. I mean, think stagecoach, not like a Greyhound or National Express, but stagecoach. But on the stagecoach, on the coach out of the city going to Dumfries, was a man who represented the family of one of the deceased in the court case.
What? By coincidence?
Yeah, he's just getting a coach to Dumfries.
Sure, yeah.
Now, he recognised him. He told the other people who he was. And when they got to Dumfries, they basically got out of the coach and said, "Hey, everybody."
You never guess who this is. Yeah.
And there was, again, a baying mob.
An instant baying mob, yeah.
Yeah, it was a flash mob.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
That's what happened, was it?
Yeah, so much so they had to call in 100 police specials to come in to restore order.
That must have taken ages.
Yeah.
Get me 100.
Give me 100 police. That's like everyone in the city.
Not 99, 100.
It's like literally, bring me all the police.
Of course, yeah.
Bring me everyone. I mean everyone.
So they took him into police custody again for his own protection, and then in the middle of the night, in the early hours of the next morning, they basically took him out of the city and they put him on the road and basically said, "England's that way, where you go."
Right.
And that was it. And off he went on the road to England, and again, that's it. Not heard from him again. I assume he was beaten to death on the road to England.
That's how the witness protection program worked then.
Yeah.
So have we got to the execution yet?
Yes, so the fate of William Burke then, he was hanged in a public forum, as was the fashion.
Yep.
There was a crowd of estimated of 25,000 people to see his execution.
Wow.
25,000?
Like I say, no TV,
Yeah.
no Instagram.
So they'd all have known about that through word of mouth or, as you say, leafleting, kind of newspapery, whatever.
Yeah.
But they all turned up. And where was that then? Whereabouts?
Oh, that would have been in the city centre.
Wow.
Because once he was executed,
Yep.
he was taken to be dissected and
Hey.
anatomised.
Oh, right. Well, that's quite good, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, poetic, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there was like a VIP section in the execution. You know, in those days, if there was boxes at a theatre.
Yeah.
Because 25,000 people, I mean, they can't have all been...
The area around the execution would have been packed, but people were letting out their windows, all the little tenement buildings around surrounding. They were pay a shilling and stand in the window, you can watch.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
literally were giving out box seats at the sides.
Wow.
So the judge in the case, Boyle, had said, when he passed the death sentence on Burke, he said... your body should be publicly dissected and anatomised, and I trust that if it's ever customary to preserve skeletons, yours will be preserved in order that posterity may keep in remembrance your atrocious crimes.
I'm gonna cut your heart out with a spoon!
And that is exactly what happened. He was dissected on show to the medical students, and his skeleton was removed to Edinburgh Medical School, where it remains to this day.
It's not often that judges pass a kind of like poetic justice, but that's quite good. That. So hang on, it was just given to medical science, not to Dr. Knox.
Not to Dr. Knox, no, to Dr. Monroe, the person they'd initially tried to find.
Yes. Wow.
But it does get a little bit macabre because at the dissection, Monroe dipped a quill pen into Burke's blood and wrote a note saying this note's written in the blood of William Burke. The blood was taken from the head. That's what he wrote on the note.
It's a bit dark.
Oh, look at the beautiful colours of the blood.
Yeah, well, it gets darker because some of his skin was removed and tanned and made into more than one object. There was a calling card case that was made of his skin. There was a book was bound with it.
Good grief.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, it's not. It's worse. It's worse than the crimes, arguably. It would just.
Yeah. The science kind of goes out the window a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It turns into this hideous serial killer style.
Yeah.
Using it for dissection makes sense, but then making trophies, macabre trophies, is just bizarre.
Do those still exist?
Yes. Yeah. I think they're like objects in like museums and things. I don't know I don't know what the entirety of what was made or what's in private hands, but there's definitely a couple of items in on public display.
On show.
Yeah. What then happened to Dr. Knox? Well, in Burke's statements, he made it clear that Knox didn't know anything about it, or he certainly said he didn't encourage him in killing, he didn't know about the killing. And Knox also was at an inquiry which exonerated him. But unfortunately, his reputation was now in tatters because of his connections.
Strangely enough.
Yeah. So the university, the College of Anatomy, he was kind of edged out, and eventually when his wife passed away, he moved to London and he worked at the Brompton Cancer Hospital that was there. He had a practice in Hackney as well. So he quietly left and went down somewhere where he wasn't known. He did contribute a lot based on what his work. He did lots of papers and things. So he was quite respected in that sense, but his reputation was destroyed. He died in 1862.
Wow.
So, William Burke did leave one legacy behind, which is the practice of burking.
Burking?
Yeah, which is a cause of death, suffocation by chest compression. It's called burking. In popular culture, do you know...
There's quite a lot.
There's quite a lot. There's a lot of like movies and stuff. Do you know one Robert Louis Stevenson?
Never heard of him.
No. One.
Him off of the Treasure Island and all that stuff. He wrote a short story called The Body Snatcher in 1884, based on this tale, which was then made into a film in 1945 featuring Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. And that's the first of many films. There's Timothy Dalton and Jonathan Pryce were in a movie called The Doctor and the Devils. There's my personal favourite, The Flesh and the Fiends in 1960 with Donald Pleasance, Peter Cushing, Billy Whitelaw. Great movie. There's a movie called Burke Hare in 1972. And then recently John Landis made a movie called Burke Hare and in 2010, which has Simon Pegg and Andy Serkis as Burke Hare.
Yeah, I've seen... Flesh and the Fiends, which is actually, the whole film is actually on YouTube. I think it's quite good, actually. Cushing is his usual kind of role, I would say.
Chewing the scenery.
He's very, it's good, though. And a young, perhaps he was, I don't know whether he was young or not, Donald Pleasance. Was he young? He didn't look young.
Well,
he must have been quite young.
He's only a few years away from Blofeld in James Bond, so he wasn't.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. In The Great Escape, he looked quite old, and Blofeld, I mean, he looked old, didn't he? Was he always old?
Yeah, he was always. I was born old.
And Peter Cushing, in the Flesh and the Fiends. I was when I was watching it, I was thinking, I never knew he had that kind of slightly lazy eye kind of thing, because he's got this thing in that in the film, and then I read that Robert Knox had a slightly I don't know how you describe it. It wasn't lazy eye. Just the
lost the sight.
Was slightly.
He had smallpox.
Oh, he did. Oh, sorry. Right. Okay.
Dr. Knox had smallpox. He was apparently quite scarred by it, and he also lost an eye.
Okay, and then so I read that afterwards.
It was made up.
And then I thought, oh right, it's actually for the film, because I just thought, I never noticed that before.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's quite good. And there's a young, well, I keep on saying young,
they were all young.
Billy Whitelaw, who looks pretty good in it. And then I would say that was pretty first few films.
Yeah. And not forgetting, of course, Melvin Hayes.
Yeah.
As Daft Jamie.
Typecast
as the daft one.
It was very good casting, I
Very
thought.
good casting,
yeah.
And then you've got, as I say, the most recent iteration, Burke Hare, in 2010 with Peg and Sirkins. Now that's quite it's a black comedy. It's a comedy, obviously, as you would expect with Peg in it.
Yeah.
But it's, it's passable. It's a loose interpretation. It's passable. One notable thing about that film, for me, is that if you manage to get through the film, at the very end, in the closing credit sequence, they have filmed the skeleton of William Burke in the medical college.
No, really, the actual.
Yeah. So if you can't get to Edinburgh and you can't get access to the
watch the end of that film.
Watch that film, and that's as close as you can get. But it's remarkable to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only seen the various clips and trailer of that film, and it's I'm sure it's all right, but I don't really see it as a hilarious comedy. So therefore, I warmed towards the Flesh and the Fiend a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're saying, if you want to see a film interpretation of the story of the Titanic, don't watch Titanic. Watch A Night to Remember. And if you want to watch the story of Burke Hare, don't watch Burke Hare. Watch The Flesh and the Fiends. We've had a review.
Ooh.
10 stars. Take that, Richard Herring.
10 stars.
Only 10.
Only 10 out of 5.
Very good. Who's that from?
Whose mum sent this one?
Very good.
From a listener in the US. So thank you, Donna, for sending in your review. So our review says, I absolutely love your podcast. 2 exclamation marks. Strong opener.
And this is definitely real.
Yes.
Okay.
She continues, I am a true crime podcast lover and yours hits the mark perfectly. I love your sense of humour and all the little sounds and voices you input in the podcast. It really makes me smile and laugh, and that's just what we all need right now. But not to mention, I love hearing the crime stories just as much. Please keep it up, I'm waiting for more. I've listened to all of them and I can't wait to get the next one.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Donna.
You will sadly have to wait, but only 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks very much. In fact, we'll dedicate the whatever you've just listened to.
As it's so long until the next one, you can have the one we just did.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Neither of us, apart from Mark, knows which one it is because we're recording this separately. But anyway, brilliant. Thank you very much for your review. Keep them coming.
That's all for this time and for this year. If you want to know more about what we've talked about this week, then just Google it or something. Please remember to send us your review. Leave one in your podcast provider if you can. And you can get all our daily feeds, email and previous episodes on our website at truecrimediary.co.uk. We'll be back in the new year with more. But until then, have a peaceful and pleasant holiday season, and however you choose to celebrate, worship or abstain, please be safe, be good and be nice. At the very least until the next date in our True Crime Diary.
Merry Christmas.